Well, today, Donald Trump, who never gives up on a lost election, finally got possession of the Nobel Prize, the Peace Prize, even though he didn't come close to winning it. In a visit to the White House today, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, just handed it over. And Donald Trump, who thinks he is the acting president of Venezuela, took it. Maria Corina Machado has been publicly insulted by Donald Trump since his attack on Venezuela. She has, of course, been publicly worshipful of Donald Trump, as worshipful as possible, but it isn't working. Donald Trump is supporting her enemies now in Venezuela, which means Donald Trump is supporting the enemies of democracy in Venezuela. And Maria Machado has made the so far losing bet that she can take her place at the top of a democratically elected government in Venezuela simply by charming Donald Trump. And so now Donald Trump has her Nobel Peace Prize and she has nothing. After Donald Trump is out of power, or possibly even before that, Maria Machado will spend the rest of her life explaining that she always knew Donald Trump was an imperialist fool, but she was just trying to deal with him to save Venezuela from his madness. She'll be saying that for the rest of his life, for the rest of her life. Because Donald Trump is because of his insane pursuit of the Nobel Prize, truly insane pursuit of the Nobel Peace Prize, which he now technically has in his possession. The Nobel Committee was forced to issue a statement saying once a Nobel Prize is announced, it cannot be revoked, shared, or transferred to others. The decision is final and stands for all time. That's what the child in the White House was doing today, while Minnesota was wondering if the child in the White House would send his next invasion force in their direction. And so it has come to this: a Democratic governor asking Republican Donald Trump directly not to attack his state. Donald Trump treats states that didn't vote for him as foreign countries. And he might or might not use the military to invade any one of them at any moment. And so this morning, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz released a written statement, not a video statement, a written statement to try to take the temperature down, a direct appeal to Donald Trump. The governor said, quote, "I am making a direct appeal to the president. Let's turn the temperature down, stop this campaign of retribution. This is not who we are." And an appeal to Minnesotans. I know this is scary. We must speak out loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. We cannot fan the flames of chaos. That's what he wants. That's what he wants. A governor accurately, honestly saying that a president of the United States wants violence in his state. Donald Trump has made the foolish mistake many times of thinking what he wants is what America wants. He made that mistake with his illegal and unconstitutional Trump tariffs that are opposed by most Americans, with most Americans fully understanding that it is Americans and only Americans who actually pay the Trump tariffs. And Donald Trump has made the mistake of thinking what he wants to see in Minnesota is what Americans want to see. A new CNN poll shows that only 26% of Americans say the killing of Renee Good last week by ICE agent Jonathan Ross was an appropriate use of force. Only 26% think what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have been telling them to think about that killing. A substantial majority thinks the killing of Renee Good was an inappropriate use of force. Fully 56% of Americans say that Jonathan Ross's decision to shoot and kill Renee Good was an inappropriate use of force. And those 56% of Americans are completely right. They have seen the video and they know what they've seen. Those 56% of Americans believe what they see with their own eyes and not what Donald Trump tells them to see. 51% say that the killing of Renee Good reflects bigger problems with the way that ICE is operating. A majority of Americans say that ICE enforcement actions are making the country less safe. 51% say that ICE enforcement actions are making cities less safe, and only 31% think that ICE enforcement actions are making cities safer. So Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, with congressional elections approaching, are appealing to 26% of voters when they defend the killing of Renee Good. Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, and the Republicans in the Congress have 31% support, as of yesterday anyway, for what ICE is doing in their invasions of our cities. The delusional 79-year-old man in the White House who now believes he's the acting president of Venezuela does not have the support of his own country for the invasion of Venezuela. And he does not have the support in this country for his invasion of Minneapolis or any other American city. And so, with the current support of 31% of Americans, Donald Trump at 8:04 a.m. this morning wrote lies on social media about Minnesota's governor and other elected officials in Minnesota and wrapped this threat into those lies. I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. America doesn't want to see Donald Trump send troops to Minnesota. Donald Trump has only 31% support for what he's already done in Minnesota, and sending the army to Minnesota is going to decrease Donald Trump's very, very low support. The Insurrection Act first became law in 1792 and was amended in 1807. It gives the president the power to deploy the American military within the United States under certain conditions, usually at the request of a governor. The Insurrection Act was last invoked in 1992, when the Republican governor of California, Pete Wilson, asked the Republican president, George H.W. Bush, for military aid after riots broke out in Los Angeles, when Los Angeles police officers were acquitted in the first trial they faced for the near-death beating of Rodney King, which was the first police misconduct in America captured on a private citizen's video camera. The Brennan Center for Justice points out, quote, "While there are rare circumstances in which such authority might be necessary, the law, which has not been meaningfully updated in over 150 years, is dangerously overbroad and ripe for abuse." Last night, an ICE agent shot a Venezuelan man in the leg while trying to apprehend him in Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said the man, quote, "began to resist and violently assault the officer." The former deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, had this reaction.
They have no credibility in terms of the way that they are talking about and characterizing the people involved in these events. They absolutely mischaracterized, deliberately mischaracterized Ms. Good and her partner as terrorists. They are not terrorists. They didn't commit any act of terrorism. They haven't been alleged to have committed a crime with an indictment or anything like that. So we know that we can't trust what the government is saying about what's happening on the ground. So now you think about what happened last night, and we essentially know nothing at this point. So it's really hard to evaluate.
First, he pardoned them, and then did he hire them? The top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, is investigating how many of the January 6th criminal rioters who were pardoned by Donald Trump are now working in the federal government, and how many of them are working as ICE agents right now, tonight. The top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, is asking the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security, quote, how many pardoned January 6th insurrectionists have been hired by your respective departments? We know that several participants in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol have been rewarded with high-ranking positions in the Department of Justice. However, it remains unclear how many more have been invited to join the ranks of this administration, including among the masked Department of Homeland Security agents and officers that have dragged, tackled, beaten, tased, shot, and killed citizens and non-citizens alike in communities across the country. On January 6, 2021, Jared Wise, then a former supervisory special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, stormed his way into the Capitol building. As he did so, He taunted and threatened police officers defending the building and the ones inside screaming, "You guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you." Mr. Wise goaded and cheered on other rioters who were beating police officers, repeatedly chanting, "Yeah, F them, yeah, kill them." Mr. Wise has never expressed remorse or contrition for his criminal actions. When President Trump issued his blanket pardon on January 6th rioters, Mr. Wise escaped accountability for 2 pending felony charges: civil disorder and assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers, as well as 4 other offenses, including unlawfully entering the Capitol. All these charges were dismissed when President Trump pardoned Mr. Wise and nearly 1,600 other rioters, including hundreds of cop beaters, on his first day in office. Today, Mr. Wise serves as senior advisor in the office of the Deputy Attorney General, alongside another January 6th participant, Ed Martin, the U.S. pardon attorney and head of the DOJ Weaponizations Working Group. None of this was possible in America until Donald Trump became President of the United States.